Hey, Chris, how you doing today? This is
Hi,
Ron.
Ryan.
No, I already
Hey,
know
doing
that.
great.
I know who I am. Damn it. All right.
Hey, imagine that. And I know what we're going to talk about today is going to be really exciting. Getting into online pharmacy. This is something that we're both really passionate about. Not
Yeah.
just because we're users of online pharmacies for different, just convenience. Nowadays, everyone's busy and doing different things, and having that convenience of not having to go do something else, right?
Right.
Physically in person can be a huge benefit. But also as providers of a platform that can really adapt to businesses as they grow and address some major concerns that most businesses have whenever they're either looking at scaling in the space or they are working to get into the space in the first place. So I think it'll be a really helpful discussion. Even if you're just not even interested in clarity at all, if you're just in the online pharmacy space, I think we're going to talk about a lot of things that you will find beneficial. So anyway, with that, I say we dive right into it.
Cool. So yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off since I'm the non-technical of the group here. We'll go ahead and start with it. And I see you nodding, going, "Yeah, you are," as the
I was
resident
literally
rocket
thinking, if
scientist.
you're not technical, wow, we have a great, a great group here.
Uh, so, for those of you who don't know, Chris and I've worked together for 14 years, and Chris used to be an aerospace engineer. So I always joke around that he's the rocket scientist in the group. So even if your project's not rocket science, we got you covered. So that's kind of our internal tagline. And we live and breathe HIPAA. I mean, this is something we do. We've done over 1,500 websites and 4,000 integrations, and we do so many medical that it is our largest single industry that we cover. And probably 20 to 25% of all of our projects are medical in nature, and everything else covers every other size of company and every other industry. So Chris and I've even done a separate YouTube channel just on HIPAA. This video is going to be in that channel. There's probably 50 different videos we've recorded just in the last 9 months or so. So we're really on top of HIPAA. We want to put these resources together, provide them to you, and keep you up to date on everything HIPAA, PHI compliance, online medical portals. We'll be doing more in this series about mobile medical apps, about doctor-patient portals, telehealth, and other things like that. We'd love to see you in the comments if there's specific things you'd like to see us cover. Today is online pharmacy. So to kick it off, the online pharmacy is really an online e-commerce, right? And Clarity's been doing e-commerce sites now for 17 years. So this is our bread and butter. We have our own Connect integration platform that connect to the pharmacy, to the labs, to the FDA, to insurance, to Medicare, to Medicaid, right? So we already have the technology to do this and have for 17 years. The real issue is, what does an online pharmacy change for an off-the-shelf e-commerce platform, right? And it's really about the OTC and the PHI, right? So if we talk about the difference between the over-the-counter drugs, I could easily just go get any third party, WooCommerce or any of the other B2C e-commerce out there. If I'm only selling over-the-counter medications that do not require prescription and do not fall under the HIPAA guidelines, then any e-commerce site will do, and you guys are good to go, right? Then we introduce the different levels and tiers of HIPAA, which we'll do here in a second. But when it comes to adding in prescriptions, a whole new world opens up. And so now all of a sudden, we're tying prescriptions to people, which can mean it ties diagnoses, and it immediately turns simple information like Chris's name or phone number into PHI protected data, because now it's identifying data of someone who's got a disease or a specific medical condition, prescription, whatever. And so it changes the game. It changes everything. So how we address and how we deal with that, typically when I'm meeting with a client, I like to categorize or classify their project, if you will, as tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 HIPAA. And basically all tier 1, tier 2, and 3 are classifications as far as how we deal with HIPAA and PHI in that portal and the cost, right? The more complexity, the more expense. And that's really it is, right? So it's level 1, 2, or 3. So level 1 would be something like, let's take a simple example. And I know this isn't pharmacy, but let's just say very quickly, WooCommerce storefront. I can buy and sell stuff. It's over the counter. I don't need a script, but I want to be able to onboard patients. So maybe I'm doing holistic herbs for weight loss, right? So now I want to onboard patients and I have a non-HIPAA compliant portal, but I need a HIPAA compliant solution. Well, in tier one, basically what we're saying for HIPAA is we work around the HIPAA. We leave the non-compliant site non-compliant, but we make the compliant portions compliant, the portions that need to be compliant. So whether that's using like a Clarity HIPAA Vault up in the cloud, or something like a Jot Forms up in the cloud that's a HIPAA compliant form, and embed the form in a non-compliant website. So the form data, when the submit button is hit, is pushed up to a HIPAA platform, or something like that. That would be tier one. So I call that HIPAA through obfuscation, right? We work around the HIPAA, so we keep the PHI protected in its HIPAA components. Tier two would be like, I have an online pharmacy and I have prescription medications. I'm going to record Ron ordering Viagra. It's a PHI deal. I have to record that. And so I do not allow, though, I just take the order and I forward the order off to the doctor or the pharmacy for approval. So it cannot be edited on the site. Then that falls under tier two, because I have a lot less user level logging that I have to do, because I'm not going to allow changes. I don't have to worry about audits for insurance. Like, for example, let's say I had type 2 diabetes. My doctor's my best friend. He calls me up and says, I have type 1. And I say, I can't get life insurance if you put me as type 1. So he goes back and changes me back to type 2. I go get insurance. And then 6 months later, he puts it to type 1. And then a year later, I die of type 1. Well, those records can be submitted for an audit, a subpoena, and those records have to be there and show that Dr. Bob went in and changed it from type 2 to type 1 and back on a certain date. And now he can be held liable for that insurance fraud, if you will, right? So there's a lot of different file, field, and user level encrypted logging that we have to do if you go to tier 3. And that's the only difference between tier 2 and tier 3 is the PHI data that's being stored could be edited. So for example, I go in and ask for a script for 700 Viagra because I think I'm the king, and the doctor comes in and says, yeah, I'll give you 2 Cialis. Okay, well, if he goes in and edits that, that is an edit that falls under tier 3, and I immediately have to ensure that I do the tier 3 fully HIPAA compliant solution. Let me go ahead and turn it over to you and let you add on to anything else you want to define for an online pharmacy, or the different tiers or complexity of the HIPAA projects.
Yeah, I think this is such a key point for businesses, because if I'm, starting a business or I'm scaling a business in this space, the big takeaway from this is there are options. And I think this is the part that can be really scary for businesses, is not knowing that there are options that can work for where they're at. Now, the other thing is there's a lot of sort of gray area within different parts of the HIPAA rules, and sort of how they look for you to interpret the level of detail and just the overall infrastructure and investment that you need to sort of have as an output to be considered to be HIPAA compliant. In other words, if you're a small company, they don't want to suffocate you. So they wrote the language such that smaller businesses can still be doing their best to adhere with HIPAA, but aware of the potential risks of the data that they're dealing with. If it's not overly risky, there's some level of assessment that's built into the HIPAA rules. And I will, just caveat, we're not lawyers. We're not your HIPAA lawyer. Definitely consult a specialist and a legal counsel to interpret the rules for yourself. It's just that the big takeaway that we see from our interpretation of the HIPAA rules is that the government wants businesses to follow best practices and industry standards and be at or above reasonable industry standards. And so this is what's really exciting is, as Ron described, there are different mechanisms for you to take advantage of improvements in the industry that will make it so that you can offer a very turnkey solution right away if you're just getting started into a space that does require HIPAA compliance. but be able to, depending on the solution you select, scale into a more robust, long-term, customizable scenario. And this is one of the big things that I would encourage you to be thinking about when you're looking at solutions is kind of to your point, Ron, is it this sort of like phase one type of HIPAA implementation? Is it this, tier one solution where it's just a online HIPAA compliant form? If so, then you probably want to sort of come up with a strategy and say, once we hit this certain milestone, we're going to progress to this tier two solution. And what are the mechanics behind that? And working with a company like Clarity or other compliant, compliancy focused companies, for example, in the space, you can build a strategy that matches where your business is at and where it's going to. Now, the other thing that I'll point out is we've done some really advanced things with HIPAA and with the online pharmacy space where we can meet really detailed requirements as you do scale up. And, what we've seen, and Ron, I know you've been involved in a lot of these projects where, it gets pretty detailed where we have many different jurisdictions. So, states, countries, and the laws associated with those different counties too, potentially, and being compliant with those while also working with robust integrations that need to be scalable. And then also tracking the user's experience without violating HIPAA, but optimizing for marketing performance. And putting all of those pieces together is, to us, it's really exciting. It's really where we ultimately live with our clients, sort of long term, is being at the cutting edge of some of the technology marriage to this HIPAA compliance. So it's a really interesting space. It's something that typically, if you have an area that you're working on in that space, we've probably already done it. We may have already come up with a really interesting and valuable solution. So whenever you're talking with our team, should you, interact with us directly, I certainly encourage you to sort of ask about your area of business. That's also just kind of wrapping up this thought process. That's also something that I think you can benefit from. Again, whether you're talking with Clarity or another company like Clarity, see if you can just get them to outline what they've done before that's similar to your project, and how they grew that business, how they helped that business to progress, and what some of the main sort of skeletal structure was, because then that can help you to think about all the different potential solutions and at least get that framework in place. And I think that's always something that you can benefit from when you're sort of doing your due diligence. So with that, I would love to sort of get into some of those areas in more detail, if that sounds good, Ron.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we do, I just wanted to comment on a comment you just made. It's really important. A lot of people feel like, and I've had even clients that have come to me, and a lot of them I'm continuously working with them now, where they have that opinion like the old movie, what is it? Build it and they will come,
Yeah,
right?
Field of
They think
Dreams.
like
Yeah,
they spend, 20, 50, 100 grand, they build this great portal and it's just going to immediately start driving business and making a lot of money. And it just doesn't work that way, right? You have to market the site just like you would market any business, and you have to market it online, and you have to market it to your audience. And that audience isn't necessarily the people you're trying to target. It's the Googles and the Bings, right? You have to market to the search engines so that you can rank well. And we're going to cover that near the end of this video. The last section is going to be about the digital marketing and the ongoing promotion of the site. So not only do you have to build the site, you have to take care of the site and promote the site and enhance the site to increase its visibility online, right? It is a science. You have to know about it. We're certified. We do this all the time. I help clients. I would love to get on a call, show you how we do it, train you how to do it, and ensure and protect that large investment that you're going to make in a medical portal. So let's talk about technology-wise, the solution, and let's walk through the process. Now, the first part we're not going to cover too in depth because we already have a complete separate video just on HIPAA hosting. It's in this playlist. I'll try to put a link down in the description about the YouTube video, the webinar Chris and I did, just talking about HIPAA hosting. But step one, Clarity has to put your site, your portal, your online pharmacy on a HIPAA hosted environment. that whoever provides that environment, whether it's Azure, Google Health Cloud, AWS, Liquid Web, there's a bunch of good ones that we like that we've worked with for over a decade. They need to sign a BAA. You'll have an agreement with them, and you'll pay them directly. We don't upcharge that hosting fee, so we can help coach you on where the best hosting is. So we start with at least a HIPAA hosted environment, and then we'll start from there. So now Clarity implements the solution. We'll go in and wireframe and design out all the workflows. Now let's say we actually do it. Let's kind of walk through the different components. So number one is I'm going to buy something, right? So here I am, a potential patient, and I go in and I start looking at the different medications. And again, everybody loves self-deprecation, so I'll pick on me and I'll make it funny. So I'm going to order Viagra today, right? So we'll just keep on that because it's funny. I'm going to go order Viagra. And I can show a couple screenshots here of some of the implementations that we've done for clients that sell drugs for, men's health, women's health, skin care, pain management, things like that. We've done specialty pharmacies that do that. Now, one of the unique and interesting things that we can do with that is based on the medication chosen. If I go in and chose Tylenol, then it says, great, add to cart. It's over the counter. I can just buy it. I could walk into Walgreens and throw it in my cart. I don't have to do anything, right? Where with even if it's just Sudafed, a decongestant, I still have to go to the counter, ask, and they have to go up and reach and hand it to me, even though I don't need a script, right? There's different things in the way even drugs that are over the counter behave. That's what our platform can do. So now if I go in and I pick Viagra, it may pop up and say, oh, here, fill out this medical questionnaire first, right? Because I don't have a prescription, but I need one. So now in the medical questionnaire, it pops up and says, how old are you? How tall are you? What do you weigh? Do you have high blood pressure? I'm just trying to think of some of the things that it might want. What's your weight? How many times a month do you plan on having sex? All those kind of questions that a doctor would want to know the answers to before approving or prescribing Ron a bunch of Viagra, right? So that would be the one thing, is that we call those dynamic medical questionnaires. So we build a database that might have 200 or 300 questions in it. And then we have a dynamic tokenized questionnaire template with each medication. So if I went in and instead of Viagra, and I think I'm a little beyond help with this, but I was looking for, Rogaine or Propecia, right, to fix this. Probably not. I'm a little bit late on that. But if I did, then it might come up and ask questions. And we've got another one we're designing right now that it says, take some pictures of your male pattern baldness, take one, and it has 3 different pictures. So the people prescribing and working on your treatment can actually see exactly your male pattern baldness, because there's different treatments for different ways that males bald, right? And so dynamic medical questionnaires is a big one for those kind of medications. Is there anything technical or implementation wise that you want to add to that medical questionnaire or the customization of the different medications in the catalog?
Yeah, I think this is a really deep one. I will just say a couple of high level points here. Number one, this can get really specific based on jurisdiction. So what's showing in the catalog can be restricted based on how they answer certain questions, like physical location. Also, answers to questions. You gave a few examples, Ron, that we can put out to them. And then this can be documented in a legally sort of enforceable way, if you will, to at least get some form of consent and documentation of that for them to share their information and decide what's presented. In a similar vein, whenever we're working with different providers who are actually prescribing, we may be showing things that require a prescription, and the online pharmacy solution that we're delivering has a sort of leg of the solution that includes telehealth, that we're partnered with a third party via our client to get that telehealth appointment set up and executed, so the prescription can come in and be stored securely in our system for record keeping, etc. And this can have a lot of sort of processing and handling that includes like different telehealth providers for different types of medication. In a similar vein, it could also include different details around the actual process that needs to occur depending on which medication type they selected. So if it's a lab test, it might be different than if it's like a Viagra or something like that. And so ultimately, these are all different scenarios that the system can adapt for. And we always like to say, your business shouldn't be the one adapting to the software. The software should adapt to your business and ultimately to your customers. And this can be sort of indirect with like making the process more automated for your internal team so they can deliver more value for your customers, sort of per team member that's on your internal team. And so these are all major considerations. I'm just kind of giving broad brushstrokes right now, but I would just say in general, these are all considerations of sort of, areas that we're going to want to get into with your particular business model and some of the nuances around that. So hopefully that's helpful, Ron.
Thanks. So going into that, so now I've taken the Viagra, I've added to cart, I filled out my medical questionnaire, and I said, hey, I want 900 Viagra, I want a 120-day supply, or 180-day supply, whatever it is, and I submit it. And I can even pay for it. So typically now what an online pharmacy software does, and we do this a lot because of remote appointments now and the capability of remote appointments, a lot more online pharmacies are doing this. So this is actually quite common for some of the implementations we've done just in the last year, ever since COVID. And so now what it'll do is it'll go in and automatically assign it into a queue, and then those prescription requests then need to be assigned to a provider who can review it, look over the medical questionnaire, and make a determination about that prescription, then write the script, approve the script, record the script, and then the platform needs to send it to the corresponding pharmacy for fulfillment. So how does that all work? Well, first thing it does is it gets sent into what we call a provider dashboard. So within the same platform, the provider would get notified. Now, there are different ways to select the provider. And it depends on if you own the pharmacy, relationship with the providers. Do you have a provider who has, when you sign them up, exclusive rights to Texas? So all prescriptions that get submitted get associated to Dr. Chris, and Dr. Chris gets notified of all of them, and Chris gets to go in and approve and deny or do whatever to all of those. Is it a round robin? All providers, since they're remote, just goes through a round robin, and our platform automatically assigns and notifies each doctor and puts one in each queue, and it just goes right around the room, and every doctor gets an even number of prescription requests coming in the door. Doesn't really matter to us. Again, as Chris just mentioned, the software should not only adapt to, but help drive your business, right? So whatever that process would look like, that's what we would do. So now when the doctor gets notified, they're going to pop into the portal, and they're going to be able to look at Ron's request for the 900 Viagra and make a decision based on that. One decision could be, sounds good. His medical questions look good. He looks like Superman. Let's go ahead and approve that, right? Obviously wouldn't happen. One, he could deny that categorically. Two, he could make a substitution, right? He could say, I won't give you 900 Viagra, but I'll give you 3 Cialis. And he could make a substitution. That would be easy to do. Trying to think if there's anything else. Okay, then when he goes to do the script, some require a digital signature, some don't, some require an official form. We've done it both ways. If I remember, I'll try to pop up a couple screenshots here in the video here's where on this screenshot, you can see where a couple different doctors have uploaded and created their digital signature. This other one here is for a different company that I'm showing, where they actually fill out, there's a PDF that's generated, and it's an official script that has to be generated, digitally signed, and then forwarded to the participating pharmacy that's going to fulfill that prescription, right? So that's going to be how the prescription is handled. The next thing we're going to move on to now is the patient side of that. Before I do, is there anything else on the provider dashboard? I know you'd kind of mentioned the telehealth sessions, right? One of the options is Ron might be up for 900 Viagra, but in order to approve that, I'm going to go ahead and request a consultation. And then this screenshot that I'll pop up here is in one of the implementations we're building, where the client can then choose, do they want that consultation via text, via phone, or via telehealth session, right? Video chat. And the client can put in whichever level they want. Sometimes the provider may require one versus the other. Maybe they need to telehealth so they can actually see Ron, make sure it's him, have him hold up his ID, whatever you want to do, right? Since it's all remote. So that would be requesting a telehealth session. And then built into the platform as part of that provider dashboard is the ability to not only see all their patients, they can do some other stuff. And we have a section in this video where we're going to actually talk about the provider dashboard and it's all the capabilities. Right now, I'm just going through ordering the drug, going in and prescribing and getting the drug, and then from there. Anything you want to add to that ordering process before we move into the patient dashboard and what the patient can now see and do once they've now placed that order?
I think you hit on it really well. The big thing, and I'll just give broad brushstrokes on this since we're going to go into detail later, but it is possible to have some very robust, deep integration that can, we can really present it well to the user so they see a clear set of steps where they're at in the process. And for what we've seen, what works best is to be very proactive and very sort of intuitive with the users about the user experience. So we're letting them know immediately there are 3 steps. You're on step 1. Each of these steps is straightforward. We've really set all of this up to make it easy. And then you'll get your, typically within this to this time frame, you will get this prescription, etc. If you follow the steps. And then just really plan for all of the different nuances. Because this is sort of from a, rubber meeting the road for your business. This is where we're going to help you to scale it the most, depending on where it is in its life cycle. Getting the customer to go ahead and move forward and sort of increasing your conversion rate is going to be a major metric that we're going to be focusing on together. And so thinking about all of the different notifications, the way that we want to present things, how we want to automate different steps, these are all pieces that we're going to be constantly iterating on together. And again, this can include some pretty deep integration to sort of remove things from the end user and from the providers too. I mean, we all know different medical providers. I'll just say in general, they tend to be quite busy. And, they will do best if we can sort of see them as a rare commodity in this equation as well. So just kind of putting those pieces together appropriately is going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah. Streamlining the operation, right? I mean, not only do we do the integrations and do the business automation, but we streamline. And that's why up front, we do an upfront technical discovery where we wireframe and map out all of these workflows to try to not only automate them, but to streamline them to make your business more efficient, more cost effective. So talking about the patient dashboard. So now I'm the patient. I ordered all the Viagra. Now what am I going to do? Well, I want to know where am I going to be approved? Is my prescription pending? Is it approved? Is it denied? Was there a substitution made? Is there a change? Who's my doctor? All the transparency that Chris just mentioned, I'm going to want to know about that, right? And then I'm going to want to know, and I'm going to try to pop up a screenshot or two while you're seeing this. I'm going to want to know how many refills I have left. I might want to go into my notifications settings and sign up for not only emails, but texts. I want to text, like I got a text yesterday from Walgreens and it said, your RX is ready for pickup. Didn't tell me which one because that would violate HIPAA, right? It's not a text is not a HIPAA compliant format, but it told me there was an RX. So I pull up my phone, I go into their HIPAA mobile app and I see that it's X medication. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't need that one for a few days. And so I can make a decision based on that information. But the nice proactive notification let me know it was there. I got another one the other day. I did that and I forgot about it, but they only leave it on the shelf for 7 days and then they put it back. So it sent me a second text that says, hey, your medication is going to be put back in 2 days if you don't pick it up. I'm like, oh, you're right. I forgot. And I jumped in the car, went over and picked it up. So those are really helpful. So the patient dashboard for me as the patient, I want to know all of my information about my scripts, the status of my scripts, how many refills I have left, and the ability to request a refill very easily And then to go in and set my notification preferences. If I want to be texted, then I should be able to go in and put my phone number and say, this is the number I want to be texted on. And maybe these are the times I want to be texted only for these scenarios. It's usually a little more common when we're doing auction platforms where they have really granular, I only want to be noted if I get outbid, but if another bid comes in and I don't really care, you can get really granular on those notifications. For prescriptions, it's usually, hey, a prescription is coming up, prescription has been refilled, or prescription might be put back if I don't pick it up. There might be only 2 or 3 scenarios where I need to be texted. Anything else you want to add for I guess, and then the last one in the dashboard would be scheduling my appointment, right? So if they request an appointment, or if I need to request an appointment with my doctor because my prescription's running out, I'm not happy with the Viagra, I want to talk to the doctor, so I want to proactively make an appointment, then I might need a scheduling mechanism where I can go into my doctor, see available appointments, schedule an appointment, and or if I have an appointment and it's a telehealth session, I can click a button, start my telehealth session, and be in the waiting room. So when the doctor starts the telehealth session on their side, we're actually seeing and chatting with each other. So typically the user dashboards have a lot about the medications, your appointments, and your telehealth sessions. Also with your orders, right? So if I've done other orders where, let's say, for example, alongside the Viagra, I get a lot of B12 and a lot of D3 and a lot of other vitamins that I order every month, Centrum, daily vitamin, whatever, I might want to have a shopping list, and I reorder those every month. And so I might want to have an easy shopping list pre-built in my dashboard where I can go to the shopping list, look at my monthly vitamins, and just go add all to cart in a single click, reorder everything that I order every month, right? So those would be typically for the patient, the things that are really convenient for the site. At the end, when we talk about marketing, we'll talk more about the storefront, the catalog. We can talk about filtering and finding and monetization and all that. But right now, we're just going through a patient, kind of going through that process, start to finish, of ordering a script. Anything else you want to add on the patient dashboard?
I would say one thing in general is the just the HIPAA security and the overall. We typically will name it based on the industry that you're in. But a lot of folks will see it as like my data is a good way to name it, or security dashboard, or my health information, etc. But basically, an area where we are complying formally with HIPAA and allowing the end user to actually make their request to remove their data from the system, or be able to make their request to leverage the interoperability rule and get their data transferred to another provider or pharmacy, etc. So those are things that are included. Any of these areas that we're talking about with our particular platform, they do typically need to be configured and tuned for your particular implementation, but they're in some form available off the shelf. And depending on the level of customization that you're looking for, they may require some additional work, but almost all of these things are available as turnkey with the Clarity HIPAA designed e-commerce platform, which is really exciting. So if you are looking for a very turnkey solution, you're going to find that with this Clarity solution that we've built.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Chris. So that concludes Act 1. We're going to take a brief intermission. We're going to do a quick costume change. We're going to be back for you. It'll be split second. And then we're going to cover the provider dashboard. We're going to go deep into the back office integrations. And then we're going to talk about the ongoing HIPAA compliance of the storefront, the platform, and the digital marketing and promotion of the platform. See you in a couple minutes, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Bye for now.